Hi everyone, Sean here from Attack Panic. In this lesson, we are going to take a closer look at your specific condition. It's important to keep in mind that this lesson is an extension of Lesson 1 and should be watched in conjunction with that lesson.
In very broad and basic terms, a phobia is the fear of experiencing a panic attack when exposed to certain situations or conditions that are completely harmless. The situation or event is not what you fear. It is the fear of a panic attack, triggered by or associated with a situation or event that you actually fear. You do not fear the actual situation or event. This section focuses on the three main anxiety-related phobias: agoraphobia, specific phobia, and social phobia. All these conditions can be completely eliminated through my building blocks. Agoraphobia is driven by your fear of having a panic attack while away from a place of safety, such as your home, not only in open spaces or in crowded public places, such as shopping malls, but also in confined spaces, such as cafes, buses, and standing in a queue at a bank. In fact, just about anywhere you fear having a panic attack.
Now it's time to repeat myself again. As you are now aware, a panic attack is a perfectly normal and instinctual emergency or fight or flight response, activated by the subconscious mind at totally inappropriate times when no real danger exists. During this response, there is an overwhelming urge to run or escape to avoid some kind of catastrophe.
The fear of not being able to exit or escape from a panic-provoking situation drives agoraphobia.
Agoraphobia is one of the most debilitating of all anxiety conditions, as the fear of not being able to escape breeds more fear of the situation. This, along with the associated memory of previous panic, causes you to begin to avoid situations in order to stay safe. This avoidance behavior, designed to keep you safe, merely strengthens your anxiety condition, which is nothing more than a learnt behavior, a bad habit. Agoraphobia can be experienced in varying degrees, from an underlying lingering and irritating anxiety in anticipation of a panic attack while away from home or your place of safety, right up to the extreme end, where the fear of suffering a panic attack becomes so immobilizing that you find it difficult to actually go outside for even just a short while. Eventually, you may even find yourself experiencing a panic attack at home just by the initial thought of going outside. The place of safety is different from individual to individual. It is basically anywhere where you consciously believe you will not experience a panic attack. It could be at your home, it could be at your office, anywhere familiar, near a telephone, with friends or family members. For me, performing live as a musician and even public speaking to large groups of people were my places of safety, for no other reason other than at the conscious level I simply didn't associate panic to these situations. I didn't fear a panic attack, and because I didn't fear panic, my subconscious didn't see any need to activate the emergency response to keep me safe. Of course, I still had an anxiety condition or high anxiety, but in these situations, I never consciously fueled my anxiety levels with fear, which is the trigger which flips the emergency response.
Remember, just because you have an anxiety condition like GAD, OCD, or PTSD, it doesn't mean that you will suffer from panic attacks or anxiety-related phobias also. Panic attacks and phobias occur only when your inappropriate anxiety reaches very high levels, activating the emergency response. Specific phobia is an intense or irrational fear of a specific thing that represents no real danger at all. Common specific phobias include a fear of flying, bridges, elevators, closed-in spaces, dogs, spiders, heights, and water, to name but a few. As mentioned earlier, the actual fear is around experiencing the horrible sensations of a panic attack, not the actual specific situation. Your acknowledgement of this fact is critical to your healing.
To illustrate this, consider someone who has a phobia of spiders. It could be mice, but I'm going to use spiders in this example. This condition is very common. Even when presented with a completely harmless species, such as a daddy long-legged spider, you will spin into a panic attack. No matter how often you tell them that the spider is harmless, it will not make an ounce of difference to them. They already know this. They are already fully aware that the spider is harmless, but it makes no difference. So what then do they fear? They know it is harmless, so why? How can they possibly have a fear towards it? The answer is that they fear the horrible sensations of panic that exposure to the spider triggers. It is the fear of experiencing a panic attack which causes their fear.
You fear the fear of a panic attack, the fear of the uncomfortable yet harmless sensations.
For whatever reason, the panic response has been experienced while exposed to a specific situation on one or more occasions. The memory and exposure to this highly emotional response conditions the mind to react with panic whenever you are reintroduced to the panic-provoking situation. Why and how this has happened is not critical to your healing. What is critical is that you accept
that you fear the fear of a panic attack. You fear the fear of the sensations themselves. Panic attacks occur as a result of an underlying anxiety condition. If you learn to stop consciously fearing the sensations and then relearn non-anxious behavior, the anxiety condition, along with the associated panic sensations, will disappear. If you didn't fear the sensations, you couldn't experience a panic attack.
If the object of your specific phobia is easy to avoid, then you may be able to go on with your life without any real disruption or need of treatment. If you have a phobia of snakes, for example, then living in New Zealand will not cause you too many issues. However, if you avoid social gatherings because of a social phobia, then you start sabotaging career or personal relationships and opportunities, and the condition becomes extremely disabling and destructive. Along with agoraphobia, social phobia was my territory. These two phobias were my constant companion for many, many years. By themselves, they can cause havoc with a sufferer's life. Working in tandem, they can cause real destruction. I know this better than anyone. I sabotaged and lost relationships, careers, businesses, friendships, and my own fortunes through my own journey of suffering. But here I am today, healed, at peace, full of love, gratitude, and a deep sense of empathy and compassion towards others. You know, it's hard to believe I once suffered from an anxiety condition at all. My point is that if I can heal myself, then so can you. I'm teaching you exactly what I, those whom I've worked with, and every other ex-sufferer has done to heal themselves. Not cope, but heal themselves. Sufferers of social phobia develop an overwhelming self-consciousness in social situations, fueled by a fear of being embarrassed or humiliated in front of others. This all stems from the fear of having a panic attack in front of others and being perceived as someone who is unable to cope with perfectly normal, everyday, non-threatening activities or situations. Now, if left to its own devices, social phobia can play havoc with your self-esteem and confidence, creating even more anxiety and fear of panic and corresponding embarrassment and perceived judgment, which, by now, you can appreciate is a recipe for a vicious cycle of anxious behavior. The fear of embarrassment or of being judged for being visibly unable to cope in front of others can be so overwhelming that the mere thought or anticipation of entering a panic-provoking situation can cause panic. Now, the fear can be so chronic that it interferes with a person's interactions, behaviour, and performance in situations such as work, social gatherings, school, and any other routine activity. In its most severe state, social phobia may even cause you to stop going to places like work or school. Full stop. I have first-hand experience of this. My panic attacks and social phobia became so bad that I walked away from an amazing opportunity while working for Te Wānanga o Aotearoa in Palmerston North, New Zealand. Towards the end of 2005, as the Assistant Campus Director, I was given the opportunity to take over as the Campus Director. Now, I was already having a hard enough time fulfilling my current tasks. Just the thought of stepping into the spotlight as the big boss sent me into horrible panic attacks. By this time, I was having difficulty going to work, running meetings, engaging with various stakeholders, and leading my various teams. So I began withdrawing myself from any situation that I perceived as threatening, which in my high-profile role was almost everything. My only place of safety back then was home. I turned down the opportunity, claiming that it would be better for the position to be filled by someone who was strong in te reo Māori. Avoiding this promotion made me even more of a prisoner to my anxiety. The buzz around my staff was that I had been overlooked. Now, hearing something like this would affect the best of us. So how do you think it affected someone like me who, at the time, suffered from an acute anxiety condition? I remember going home at around that time and breaking down in front of Nikki for the very first time. I had no idea what was going on. I withdrew even more from my high-profile role as Assistant Campus Director. Somehow, for about the next 6 months, I managed to always have some convenient excuse as to why I couldn't attend any meetings or even go to work. This had a flow-on effect, of course, with my personal life as I began to withdraw from social interaction. I soon became completely housebound. This was a disastrous situation to be in. I had 2 children to care for, and we were a single-income family. If I couldn't go to work, pretty soon people would come and take my furniture. I ended up leaving Te Wānanga o Aotearoa in mid-2006. I thought that my work there was the problem, and if I left, my anxiety would also leave. I was wrong. This destructive cycle of sabotaging career or work opportunities repeated itself several times before I finally took control and healed myself. The last and most severe cycle was experienced when I went to work at Toyota New Zealand as team leader of the business planning unit during 2008. My panic attacks were so severe that I would literally spend around 3 hours each day locked in a toilet cubicle. True story. Absolutely petrified of facing my staff and work colleagues, waiting for my panic sensations to die down. I was responsible for a small team of analysts, and part of my role involved constant interaction with and reporting to the executive management, including the CEO. I lasted 9 months there. Actually, I'm surprised that I lasted that long. My absence at key reporting meetings didn't go unnoticed. Instead of confiding in my immediate supervisor as to what I was experiencing, what I was going through, I did what I had always done. I resigned and left with my tail between my legs. By this time, I was at my wit's end. My social phobia had reached the absolute bottom, and I had put my family at risk yet again. A year earlier, 2 of my companies had been liquidated. I had lost a fortune and went bankrupt in the process. This was the absolute lowest point in my life. Driven by sheer desperation, motivated by the welfare of my children, I finally decided to once and for all tackle my anxiety front on. And I did so using the principles contained in these building blocks. Now, social phobia may be specific to only one situation, such as speaking in front of others. Or in the most severe cases, you may experience panic sensations whenever you are around others.
The most common physical sensations experienced with the panic response is a racing heart, nausea, intense blushing, skin rash, difficulty talking, and trembling hands, all of which can be extremely embarrassing, as you will undoubtedly be so self-conscious that you believe that all eyes are on you, watching, noticing you in difficulty, and judging you for your inability to cope.
The truth is, no one really notices or cares what you are going through, apart from, of course, those close to you who care and love you, such as your family and friends. But other than those few, everyone else is inherently too preoccupied with themselves and their own problems and issues that they have to deal with to even notice you having difficulty. I know this only too well. Following my healing, I began sharing my story with friends. Their first reaction was always that they had no idea what I was going through, as I always came across as super confident and self-assured. I wish I had known that at the time. Our anxiety-filled perception of ourselves and what we think others see is so far from the truth of what others actually see or perceive about us. Everyone, and I mean everyone, has their own issues and challenges that they need to deal with, no matter who they are. And they've got a hard enough job dealing with their own issues to notice you. The truth of the matter is that in most cases, the only one noticing you having difficulty is you. Trust me, my first panic attack in front of others occurred in 1993, and up until about the beginning of 2009, I suffered thousands. And it turns out, through talking with a larger number of people who knew me throughout those years, that bugger all even noticed me stuttering, blushing, trembling, and having difficulty breathing.
What are you currently doing to keep yourself safe? Are you preoccupied with embarrassing yourself in front of others? Do you have intrusive, worrying thoughts about panicking in front of others? When you find yourself in difficulty, do you focus in on your uncomfortable sensations and try your best to turn them off or stop them? If that doesn't work, do you then avoid situations that you believe will cause you to panic? And following an attack, do you ponder and worry over the experience, chastise and ridicule yourself on your inability to cope like other normal people? Do you use coping strategies, techniques and safety crutches to help you manage?
If you have answered yes to any of these questions, how has it worked out for you? My guess is that you are still suffering from panic attacks. Why? Because all of your actions and behaviour you are currently engaged in to protect yourself are based on resistance, fighting against that which you fear. These conscious actions are fear-based, creating more anxiety, strengthening this habitual anxious behaviour. Now, intuitively, it seems like the right thing to do, to run away from or avoid that which you fear. But this attitude is precisely what is keeping you here. The solution to ending social phobia is the same for all other phobias, panic attacks, and anxiety conditions. It's doing the exact opposite to what you are currently doing. We'll get to that real soon. Social phobia is an interesting one. You fear the fear of experiencing the sensations of panic in front of others, and to make it worse, you also have a fear of being embarrassed, judged, and ridiculed by others who see you having difficulty. Don't despair. My building blocks will completely heal you of this highly disabling condition.